The anointed ones, welcome. A broken pot is more likely to contain genius than a full one. E.B. White. Isn't it funny how the world functions? The brains who rewrite history are often those that society deems as too passionate, too strange, or too unpredictable. The catch is that the majority of brilliant people aren't found in epiphanies. No, they're often disregarded, misinterpreted, or even written off until people suddenly discover they've always been surrounded by genius. And you are now experiencing just that. Initially, they failed to notice you. Perhaps they even considered you quite strange. However, they are now unable to ignore what they are witnessing. The frequency at which your mind functions is very different. You find solutions to issues before they arise. You believe in dimensions that the majority of people are unaware of. And you reveal things so naturally that others are at a loss for words. The majority of people are unable to identify brilliance when they first see it. According to studies, innovative concepts are often turned down before becoming adopted. Why? Because genuine genius upends the familiar, the predictable, and the anticipated. It's also sort of funny to see folks struggle to make sense of what's occurring. Let's face it. They are questioning you 1 minute, and then they are having a hard time comprehending why they didn't see it sooner. It's similar to seeing someone attempt to open a door for an hour, just to discover that it has been unlocked the whole time. But why is this occurring at this time? Why are people now taking notice of what you've known all along? Well, my buddy, they can't overlook your intellect anymore. You'll never look at your own thoughts, or how others respond to it the same way again once we pinpoint the precise cause of this change. Let's begin. First of all, you unwittingly reveal others' mental indolence. The majority of people never really think, not in the profound, life-altering sense that alters viewpoints or challenges everything. They adhere to routines, take in information as it is presented to them, and create easy-to-follow mental habits. Then you appear, and you upend their whole universe without even trying. Your ability to think critically, profoundly, and in ways that reveal the mental shortcuts others use, is what makes you intelligent, not simply your information. Something seems awkward the minute you speak, pose a query, or dispute a widely held view. People come to the awareness that they've been operating automatically, and that insight? It's eerie. Most likely, you've seen it before. You casually bring up an insight, something utterly apparent to you, and the room goes quiet. One person moves in their seat, while another blinks. As they take in what you just stated, it becomes brutally obvious to them that they have never considered it in that manner before. What's the worst? The entire time it was directly in front of them. Because of this, people may become defensive just by seeing you. Nobody likes feeling vulnerable, particularly if they were unaware that they had anything to conceal. They are forced to face an unpleasant truth when they see how easily you connect the dots and reveal layers they were unaware of. They have been intellectually lazy, taken things at face value, followed the crowd, and shunned the type of thinking that demands genuine effort. For this, you are admired by some. They feel motivated, even empowered, when they see your creative process. Others, though, they respond negatively, even becoming irritated, not because they don't like you, but rather because you challenge their preconceived notions. And asking questions is difficult. It compels individuals to acknowledge that they may have been mistaken or unaware of the more profound reality. Because of this, your talent is so disruptive. It helps people realize they haven't been thinking at all, not simply that they've been thinking. Number 2, your talent produces psychological discomfort in others. People like to assume they know what intellect looks like. They have a checklist in their minds, certain degrees, a certain manner of speaking, maybe even a definite personality type. They want brilliance to come packaged in a packaging that suits their concept of what a genius should be. Then something doesn't add up when you arrive. Even if you don't match the template, They can't refute the level at which your intellect functions. The internal conflict starts at this point. But what they're seeing in you goes against what their brain tells them intellect should look like. Additionally, cognitive dissonance occurs when a person has two conflicting beliefs that are illogical. It's that uneasy mental lapse that occurs when expectations aren't met by reality. They have trouble processing the fact that you're just a different kind of thinker, rather than accepting it right away. Some will attempt to explain it. They'll believe that you must have some secret edge, a secret skill, or a unique ability that makes everything possible. Some may completely disregard it, persuading themselves that you're just fortunate or strange. But deep down, whether they confess it or not, they feel something they can't shake, an anxiety that comes from recognizing they could have been incorrect about what intelligence truly looks like. It's not necessarily a conscious response. When someone is brilliant, people don't go about thinking, "Wow, I'm struggling to process this person's brilliance because it challenges my entire belief system." Instead, it occurs subtly, as when they pause in their speech, chuckle awkwardly, or approach you differently. It may be seen in the way they go silent when you talk, or in the way they repeat what you say, as if it were their own. People are frequently at a loss for words around you because of this. Not only are they amazed, but they're also perplexed. You compel them to reassess something they didn't even know they were hanging on to, and for many, that's more uncomfortable than anything else. Number 3. You tackle difficulties that others didn't even realize existed. Most people don't see problems until they're unavoidable. They respond when things go wrong, rush to fix the damage after it's done, and then pretend that nobody could have foreseen it. However, before they become catastrophes, you can see the fractures. You see the little things that others miss, predict results, and identify trends. And that's precisely why, when you bring up a problem before it's even apparent, people are unsure of how to react. Most people don't take you seriously. They ignore you, label you too analytical, or act like you're making a big deal out of nothing. But then, precisely what you warned them of occurs, and suddenly, they don't know what to say. They recall what you said, and they are momentarily stunned because they know in their hearts that they ought to have paid attention. This is about comprehending the unseen mechanics of how things operate, not simply about identifying issues. You are aware of the deeper patterns that lie under the surface, whether they are in relationships, business, society at large, or discussions. Before most people even recognize that there is a direction at all, you can forecast where things are going. Others find this quite upsetting, since they want to think they are in charge. When it comes to choices that have an impact on their life, nobody wants to feel as though they're missing something apparent. They are forced to admit that they aren't as observant as they believed when you casually bring up something they should have observed but didn't. That insight? It's not comfy. You'll be admired by some for it. They will begin to listen more intently, and may even ask for your opinion before making a choice. People will behave as if they saw it all along, and act as though they never had any doubts about you. The fact that you were correct will be hated by others, since it serves as a reminder that they weren't. However they respond, one thing is for sure. You leave them with an unavoidable reality, which is why they are at a loss for words. Fourth, they just hear the surface of what you say because you talk in layers. People can become quiet when you talk for a cause. You're saying something more than merely intelligent. You're stating something complex. Your comments may seem straightforward, even informal at first glance, yet they are laced with deeper meanings, comparisons, and unspoken truths. The issue is that this is not how most people process information. They seldom pause to consider the underlying meanings of things they hear, taking them literally. They can't quite describe why, but they feel something when they listen to you, a weight to your words, an impression that remains. They seem to have just heard something significant, but they lack the cerebral capacity to immediately analyze it. Because of this, individuals are often affected by your talks in waves. They may nod along, just partially comprehending what you're saying. But later, when they're alone themselves, something makes sense. They mentally rehearse what you said, and all of a sudden they understand what you meant. At that point, people understand that you were exposing something significant, rather than just making a remark. This is also the reason why your conversation may overwhelm others. Some people are thrilled and motivated by the profundity of what you have just revealed to them. Because your remarks make people think in ways they're not accustomed to, some get upset, even irritated. They're not ready to comprehend, not that they don't understand. Only a select few who really value depth will be aware of what you're doing. They will desire more when they see the depth in your thoughts and the layers in your speech. But most of them, only a small portion of what you really intended will be understood by them, because they're still attempting to catch up, rather than because they didn't hear you. You often leave people dumbfounded when you speak. The fifth is that your presence exposes their own self-limiting assumptions. For others, your presence acts as a mirror, reflecting the limits they have unconsciously set for themselves. You live outside of those barriers, yet many people are constrained by their own mental boundaries, held back by antiquated ideas, failure-related anxiety, or societal conditioning. Your capacity to think freely and share daring, unusual ideas challenges people to examine the invisible prisons they've accepted as normal. They didn't even aware they were locked in the box until you shined a light on it. And it may be both freeing and frightening when people realize how big your viewpoint is. What they observe will inspire some individuals, as if they suddenly understand there's so much more to discover and so much more they might do if they only let themselves to think differently. They will feel the weight of their own self-imposed limitations lifting. Your presence serves as a stimulant for their development and a reminder that they, too, are capable of transcending their mental limitations. But for others, your way of thinking is uncomfortable. It calls into question all of their preconceived notions and forces them to face the unsettling reality that their viewpoint has been too narrow and constrained. Even if they are unable to completely explain why, the revelation may be overpowering. They've spent their whole lives constructing their world around these boundaries, and now, just by being in your company, they've seen the fissures in that foundation, which causes them distress. Although you don't want to change anyone's perspective, just by being someone who thinks differently from the norm, you help people see how much of their lives have been controlled by mental obstacles. Because of this, your talent may be frightening to some people, and nothing less than freeing to others. The sixth is that you produce while others consume. The majority of individuals just take part in life passively. They watch, scroll, take in, and repeat. Their opinions are influenced by the ideas they have been fed, the headlines they have read, and the influencers they follow. They almost ever dispute their ideas, much less ask whence they originate. They do not produce, they just consume. But you do the exact opposite. You do more than just absorb knowledge. You dissect, reassemble, and personalize it. You combine concepts that others would never consider related. Instead of repeating what has previously been stated, you generate new ideas. And the reason your presence is so unnerving is because of this basic difference between you and the typical individual. People are aware in their hearts that they depend too much on outside influences to influence their thoughts. They follow the most widely held beliefs, believe the loudest voices, and seldom ever stop to think about whether any of it makes sense. They are forced to face the unpleasant reality that they have been intellectually lazy when they encounter someone like you, who isn't constrained by such mental shortcuts. This explains why you both captivate and terrify others. On the one hand, they respect your uniqueness and your capacity to generate concepts that appear to come from nowhere. However, Your mere presence reminds them of what they might become if they stopped consuming without thinking and began to think critically. You will inspire some people. They will begin to think more deeply, ask more questions, and maybe even start making things for themselves. Others, on the other hand, will respond defensively or even resentfully since they can think for themselves. So why can't they? The answer is straightforward. They can, but it takes work, and work hurts. For this reason, even after people leave and the discourse is ended, your presence remains. Not only do you stand out from the crowd, but you also revealed something they weren't prepared to see: their own reliance on other people's opinions. And that insight? They will never be able to ignore it. Seventh, other people are caught in time, but you view it differently. The majority of people are captives of the present. They seldom pause to think about the wider picture. Instead, they respond to the present and base their choices on their feelings at the time. They have linear thinking. They see events as discrete occurrences that are unrelated to past or future happenings. As a result, people find themselves trapped in cycles they aren't even aware of, making the same errors. But you have a different perspective on time. You see the past, present, and future as one continuous flow, rather than as distinct entities. You are able to see patterns before they become completely developed. You see how little deeds may have far-reaching effects. You realize that people's decisions now are really a reflection of their decisions from the past. And that's precisely why people are shaken by your insights. People are unable to comprehend the uncanny precision of your predictions. It seems to them to be luck or intuition. In practice, however, you just pay attention. You see how people's actions follow predictable cycles, how history repeats itself, and how patterns develop long before they are readily apparent. You are already planning 10 steps ahead of time, while others are engrossed in the feelings of the present. This is the reason your presence is so eerie. People believe they have control over their decisions, but you show how much of their actions are determined by invisible factors like history, habit, and unconscious patterns they never consider. They often ignore warnings concerning things they aren't yet able to perceive. However, they are rendered incomprehensible when it occurs just as you mentioned. Because you have the unique capacity to see what others overlook, some people will respect you for this. However, since your knowledge jeopardizes their sense of control, others will be afraid of it. They dislike being reminded that while you are planning, they are responding. While you move through time like a master, others are stuck there, traveling mindlessly. And that distinction? It makes you unique in a manner people won't soon forget. The eighth is that you are very good at recognizing patterns. The majority of individuals see life's occurrences as isolated instances, unconnected, random moments that just so happen to happen. They respond to every new scenario without thinking about how it fits into the bigger picture, because they live in the now. However, randomness doesn't seem to you. Where others see chaos, you find patterns. You are aware of order. It helps you make sense of what seems to be chaos by revealing the hidden threads that link the dots. You have a distinct advantage because of your ability to recognize patterns. You can quickly understand the relationships between a number of behaviors, trends, or occurrences. You realize that every choice you make today affects the future, and that the present is constantly linked to the past. You're quietly putting everything together and making remarkably accurate predictions about the future, while others are swept up in a maelstrom of uncertainty. This ability often astounds people. They believe that you possess a unique talent or hidden insight that the others lack, and they look at you and ask, "How did you see that coming?" In actuality, however, you're just paying attention differently than others are. You are looking at the world from a perspective of interconnectedness rather than randomness. You see what others reject as chance, as cause and consequence. You can observe the underlying patterns that individuals are unaware of when they behave in a certain manner, or when certain trends start to emerge. Making these connections allows you to make predictions about the future, often with astonishing accuracy. Those around you may find your ability disconcerting, particularly if your prophecies come true. It makes them face the fact that they are unable to see the whole picture. You're already a few steps ahead of them, knowing the patterns they never bothered to learn, while they're just concerned with the here and now. Furthermore, it's not magic when you write out the events. Rather, it's simply clarity. A clarity they won't accept. The ninth is that you unintentionally break societal conventions. Without ever realizing it, the majority of individuals follow the unwritten laws of society. It seems secure and familiar, so they follow customs, fit in with the group, and do what they are told. They seldom pause to consider the reasons behind their actions, since the urge to fit in is so strong. However, you never follow those rules to the letter. Following the herd is not ingrained in your psyche. You automatically break the patterns that others are so used to, since you don't fit the mold.